As we speak, both pro and anti-Gaddafi forces claim to control the city of Benghazi, which is one of the largest oil-producing areas in the country. It has access to the oil fields, which, as we all know, oil is a very, very important thing when it comes to both domestic and foreign politics. Right now, as it stands, in a very weird situation, an oil field is held by a revolutionary force. It's not being held by a country, or even a corporation for that matter. A revolution and revolutionaries control an oil field and an oil facility. I think this poses some very important questions for the future and possibly for right now. Basically what I'm getting at is that there's a very real possibility that a revolutionary force could be pumping oil and making money from oil production. I think it's a tremendous possibility. I mean, if this situation drags on, which it may or may not do, given whatever happens in the immediate future, we could be looking at a rebel army owning oil production. And the revenue of such could go towards war materials into not only defending their revolution from imperialist intervention, but also from Gaddafi himself. I mean, we could be looking at a revolutionary army that's got oil money. And I think that poses some very serious questions for the immediate time and the future. Now that workers, the people in Benghazi have seized the oil production from the Libyan government, and now it's starting to look like Brega will be doing that too. We'll now have a good portion of the Libyan oil fields in the hands of the revolutionary force. And this is a very exciting time, and not just for the people of Libya, but the Middle East and quite possibly the entire world as well. I mean, there's a very real possibility that there could now be a revolutionary oil production. But I think before something like that can happen, I think there are four fundamental questions that we have to ask ourselves if we're to consider the idea of oil being under production of a non-official source, a revolutionary armed force, basically. And I think these questions do need to be addressed before we could step forward with thinking of any possibilities for the future and such. These are the four questions I think that the people of Libya and the world are facing. Will the people seize oil production or leave it to the government? 2. What will be the immediate effects on the oil market if they do produce worker-owned oil? 3. How will they organize oil production under community control? 4. What will be done with the profits from any such production? As it stands right now, it's not really known exactly what's going to happen. I think that right now, those of us in the West, and to a large part other parts of Africa and the Middle East as well, are not fully aware of what level of social consciousness the people of Libya do have. I would certainly believe, would like to think that while they're going through this whole revolutionary situation, that their social consciousness is being developed in a spontaneous way and is, at least in some way, being put through a trial and error kind of period, as they do things and see how they work and how the experiences live out, that they are building a community-based consciousness to possibly go forward and attempt something like this. Also, we really don't know if they have any community-based level organization that's shown up since the government has left. We did see that with Egypt, and how in the absence of government power, individual communities set up their own councils and operated things within their immediate circles devoid of government power, a spontaneous coming together of the masses to deal with the situation without government control. And at this time we really don't know, because we have at best third-hand information about what the people of Libya are going through. I think there's going to be a great deal in variety of the reaction by the international market to the creation of any such worker-owned oil production. I think that there would be a very large resistance by financial companies and to a degree some banks, because financial companies have more of a hand in oil production and the funding of oil production than banks do. But I think right away we can expect at least Hugo Chavez to come forward and support the people in Venezuela producing their own oil. I would hope that he would even offer assistance to them in getting oil production up and running, but we really don't know, because we don't know what's going on inside Hugo Chavez's head. So I would think that we could at least expect support from him, at least moral support in doing so. But I think from the international market in general, we could expect a lot of resistance, because a worker-owned anything is a dangerous example. I do think, however, that the market itself and the people who control the market, because despite the common belief the market isn't some crazy animal that just goes around doing whatever it wants and causing all kinds of chaos, and the best we can do is pray and hope and try to push it in the right direction. I think what's mainly going to happen if workers do take control of the oil fields in Libya, immediately the oil companies are going to use this as an excuse to raise the price. And they are very much, as they are now, just going to blame the Libyan people for it. I think if workers do start putting their own oil on the market, they're going to claim market distortions and jack the price up and just blame everything on them, saying that they're distorting the market, they're not doing it right and producing inferior quality because you have to have some big powerful corporation do it for you, because if you don't, that means you're not doing it right. So I think in that case, the oil market itself is going to go up, because that's what they do. They charge you more for any reason they can, and then blame everything on the Libyan workers. I think the largest impact from the market will be felt by Europe, because pretty much all of Libya's oil, if not absolutely all of it, goes to Europe. I mean, I hear it does, but I don't have exact percentages and stuff like that. I do know the largest purchaser of Libyan oil is Italy. So any such impact from the market would most likely be felt in Italy the most, and then second to them, I believe, is Germany. So in terms of our markets here in the West, North America, South America, there rationally shouldn't be any, because they're not really affecting ours. There might be some slight justifiable increase or whatever, but it is going to massively impact Europe's oil. But again, it remains to be seen exactly what the energy speculators and whatnot are going to do. I think that there's also going to be a very definite possibility of Western and European interests coming into conflict. Right now, 85%, unless they've made changes since then, 85% of the aviation fuel in Europe was coming out of Libya. And that tends to leave when you have that much of your resource coming from one place on a capitalist market, that's just asking to get screwed over. I think Western forces are going to push their interests and maybe drag it on a little longer so that they can get justification for intervening, and the European powers are going to want it done and over with, the situation settled right away, so they can get back to relative price stability for airline fuel, which airline fuel, if you screw with the aviation industry, that's going to do a lot of harm to a lot of industries, particularly in Europe. So I think there might be a clash of interests between the West and Europe. But overall, the entire situation, I think it's probably more likely that any example of worker-owned oil will be shut down as soon as possible. I think that if this does happen, we can definitely bet on NATO invading Libya, coming on from those liberated areas, not just because they're on the coast, but because they would have worker-owned oil, and the idea of a military invading a country for oil is, well, really not that foreign. The really good question is as to whether or not there's a community level of organization that is capable of socially taking up the task of organizing this oil production and getting it done. As I said before, there was spontaneous organization, a community organization that showed up with the whole Hosni Mubarak Egyptian revolution thing. But to a large extent, we don't know what's happened now with the people in Libya. So we don't know exactly what the situation there is like and what kind of community organization they have. I would certainly hope that something's popping up, but I think an important point to make is that if it were to happen and there was a socialist, if there was a community level organization, it would definitely be of a social character, if not outright socialist. I mean, the people there have already understood that so the oil's been pretty much in private hands for X amount of time. There's been promises of using the oil money to fund this and that, and those for the most part have not been forthcoming. So I think that if they were to take it, it would definitely be run in a communal way. I think we could definitely be looking at a socialist organization of the oil production in that country, and I think that would be a very encouraging sign for us here in the rest of the world, but a very dangerous example that I'm sure the world capitalist system would be trying to shut down as quickly as possible. I certainly believe that it would definitely be of a socialist production, and I don't see why the profits from something that was produced socially would be held privately. So I'm pretty sure that this money would go out, would hopefully go to reconstruction efforts and stuff like that. But I mean, when you're in the middle of an actual war and you're doing reconstruction efforts, that creates a whole ton of logistical problems that would be just not just logistical, but political as well. Who's giving materials to the rebels in order to rebuild, and then Gaddafi is going to retaliate and stuff like that. So I think we're probably going to look at, if there was a socialist takeover of the oil from the Libyan government, that reconstruction would have to wait until the actual war was over, or at least the war had been pushed so far away that there wouldn't be much of an impact on the people who had taken it. But I definitely believe that that wealth would be shared. It would be the only thing that would make sense. If it was socially owned, then the wealth would be socially distributed. So I definitely think that it would be socially distributed for people's needs, I hope. These are some important questions that do need to be analyzed further, and obviously I can't do the whole thing in a YouTube video. If anybody has any suggestions, ideas, comments, or any further questions that need to be asked concerning the possibility of revolutionary oil production, I would encourage you to leave them in the comment section and possibly get a dialogue going about the various ideas and possibilities for future revolutionary oil production.